And then I find myself thinking, as I was at the hospital, there's guys I'm on the floor with on that same level with who were also injured, missing 3 limbs, missing 4 limbs, spinal cord injury. You realize I recognize that I didn't have, someone who was injured like me doing something like this. And so I wanted to push myself and get to that summit and show them like, hey, there's life after this. Life doesn't just end because we're missing a limb. There's so much more to life. And like I said, it set the tone going forward where I knew anything in life is possible. But that was the point in time where things changed and what set me to where I am now.
I'm Matthew Dank, and this is Service and Beyond podcast, where we talk to Australian military veterans about their service stories and their journeys out of uniform and back to civilian life. This series charts the journey of current and former Invictus athletes from 4 countries, covering their military careers, their deployment histories, and the injuries they suffered. We talk about their experience of life-changing injury and their remarkable physical and emotional recovery through training and competing in adaptive sports and through the Invictus Games movement. This series also tells the story of the families of these former service personnel, their shared pain and trauma, and the path through hardship, and the bonds and friendships they formed through their involvement with the Invictus Games. Today's episode features Kionte Storey. Kionte joined the United States Marine Corps to meet a call for adventure and go beyond his hometown of Compton, California. On completing infantry training, Kionte saw service in Iraq and Afghanistan, where he was struck by an IED blast resulting in the loss of his leg, traumatic brain injury, and eventually PTSD. Soon after his repatriation to the US, Kionte dabbled in track, trying his hand at adaptive sports. He was quickly identified for his talent and potential, and within 2 years was competing at a national level. Soon, between short course track events and marathon running, Kionte took to summiting mountains in Antarctica and Africa to challenge himself further. It was while facing defeat while attempting to climb Mt Vinson in Antarctica that Kionte realised his full potential to overcome any challenge. Kionte's drive has been channeled into his career and academic studies and finding ways to go beyond his previous brain injury, and he is well on his way to completing 2 degrees, building his dreams of becoming a physical therapist. In this episode, we also touch on the central role of Kionte's service dog, Koja, in aiding with his PTSD and recovery over the past decade following injury. Kionte is on the 2023 Invictus USA team, having completed first in The Hague in 2022, and it's my pleasure to bring you his incredible story of service and triumph over adversity. Enjoy the episode. Well, let's get rolling. Kionte Storey, welcome to Service and Beyond podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome indeed, and really looking forward to capturing your story today of your origins, your marine journey, and really some quite incredible recovery challenges you've overcome through to your sports career and now the Invictus 2023 Games in Dusseldorf. So I think it's going to be a great podcast.
Yes.
So first up, I guess, we're just days away, under 2 weeks, in fact, from Dusseldorf 2023 in Germany. You must be about ready to head over.
Yeah, it's about 2 weeks away, and I am ready to compete. I'm ready to meet the team, and I'm more so excited to see who shows up in the events that I compete in, which is track, rowing, and swimming, and the athletes that I will be competing against. And overall, just looking for a great time out there in Dusseldorf.
Yeah, magnificent. And last time we were speaking, you had a few interesting comments on how you'll experience this year's competition versus your last competition, so we can get to those in a little bit. But we might start out with your backstory, where you grew up and how you came to join the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I grew up in Stockton, California. A bit about growing up in Stockton, California. I was adopted. The short story is I was raised by my second cousins. Then I went into foster care because I was raised by a single woman who already had 4 of her own kids. And so I was the 5th edition, raised me until I was about 10. And then when I went into foster care, that's kind of where I would say, at the age of 10, I experienced a lot more in life, a little feeling of just a struggle, more of a struggle on top of just growing up in foster care. And then at the age of 18, I decided to join the military to get out of Stockton, find my own way in life, find my own stuff as a person, and just wanted to experience a bit of that, experience combat in the sense of, before I enlisted, a lot of people would talk about the news and the politics behind what's going on overseas. And I just wanted to have a firsthand experience. But more than anything else, it was also another way for me to travel and see the world, since that wasn't really an option, nor was going to college a viable option financially. So joining the military was a way for me to kind of do all of those things. And I felt it was the only, if not best, option I had.
Pretty common story, I think, of a lot of guests on the podcast coming through and finding reasons to join defense or the military. Was there anything in particular that drew you to the US Marines over other services or other opportunities?
Yeah, so initially I was going to join the United States Army, but I had a friend who was also going to join the Army, and he was leaving before me, and he kind of went to the recruiting offices and checked things out and stumbled upon the Marine Corps recruiting office. And then he came back and he was like, "Hey, you got to go check this out. Like, it's really cool." And I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever." Whatever military branch I joined, I didn't really care so much. I was young and foolish and didn't know enough about what's the difference between each branches. And so, but when I did step into the Marine Corps recruiting office, it was exactly what I envisioned joining the military would look like, at least from the sense of the recruiters were well represented, like how they, carried themselves. When it came to PT, they pushed us in the way that I felt I wanted to be pushed. And just overall, they just looked really good in uniform, which I think most people will say United States Marines has the best looking uniform. And no diss to any other branches. I think I chose the Marines because of how they carried themselves, and that's what I envisioned the military looking like. And that was kind of just, I was like, where do I sign? As soon as I saw exactly what I felt was, okay, this is what I want. This is the branch I wanted to join, and I'm all about it.
Excellent. And how did your career progress from there, from joining up from your basic training or boot camp through to your infantry specific training and then onto your Middle Eastern deployments?
Yeah, so I signed up in Stockton, California. I did my boot camp in San Diego, California. After I finished boot camp, I went to the School of Infantry, SOI, Camp Pendleton, where I learned a bit more about infantry training. And then from there, graduated and went on to my first duty station in 29 Palms, where I was stationed with 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines. Once I got there, we did our workup. Well, actually, they were just coming back from deployment. So after that, we did our workup for our first deployment to Haditha, Iraq. That was my first deployment. And that was in 2008, 2009 timeframe. And then we came back again and did my next workup for Afghanistan, where I was injured in 2010.
And your injury there was in a combat engagement. Can you tell me the backstory of that day and what led to the engagement and the injury itself?
Yeah, so in September of 2010, we were kind of in a patrol base, and we're getting intel. Well, what I recall this day being is that we were getting intel saying that we were going to get ambushed. And so what we did was we set out a satellite patrol, and I was part of that satellite patrol. And that whole intent of that patrol was to kind of set up an offshoot of military personnel kind of in a location unknown to the enemy. So if they did go through with the ambush, we're going to ambush the ambush, if that make any sense. And so as we're leaving early in the morning to set everything up. And as we're going to kind of find that placement for us to kind of bunker down or hold up, we kick down a door, and my team goes in. Roughly about 12 12 individuals. I want to say, I know we had some Afghan National Army with us as well, but I'm not the first one in. So I'm the outer security, to give you an idea of where I'm at I'm a team leader at this point with outer security. And so anyway, the team goes in, nothing happens. It's radio silent. The appointment comes back out, comes back inside. I'm like, okay. And since we're being radio silent, or we're not trying to use any of our communication gear, I'm just making the decision, okay, I'll walk in, the 10, 20 feet that I think, because I have no idea what the inside fully looks like, 10, 20 feet to just kind of chat and see what's our next move. Do I need to move my team to another position? Since I'm out of security, I'm going to be the first one kind of have eyes on anything outside for them. But as I walk inside 2 to 3 steps, an IED goes off, and all I remember is just my ears were ringing. I fall to the floor, and the thing that kind of keeps me awake is dirt fell in my ear, and I didn't like that feeling. And so I kind of was annoyed by that immediately. I wasn't exactly sure what happened, now that I know it's an ID, but at the time of the blast, I wasn't sure if it was like an RPG. I wasn't sure if it was something else. But what I do know is that I'm laying on the floor, and I'm trying to push myself up because it feels like I'm just been hit by a truck. The wind's knocked out of me. And I know I'm laying on the floor, and I'm trying to push myself up against the wall because I know my location. And my right leg isn't responding, is not doing what I'm asking it to do. And my left leg is kind of not really doing anything at all. So I assume, okay, maybe I'm a double amputee. Let me remain calm, slow my heart rate, because if I am bleeding out, there's nothing for me to do. If I'm trying to do anything myself, I don't know the extent of my injuries as of yet. So we have our, I know I'm with one corpsman, which is the medic, and one prior service corpsman, now Marine. So I know there's 2 people who know their stuff about saving lives and, getting me all bandaged up and what needs to happen. So, and sure enough, my team comes through. I remain calm. I talk to, the corpsman, explain what I'm feeling, kind of let him do his job, but giving him kind of a bit of a sense of what else might be going on. And I kind of just do the self-awareness check, and he gets me all tourniquet up. They get me on a stretcher. They get me out of there. They get me to the nearest vehicle. That vehicle takes me to the nearest base, our nearest biggest base, or FOB. And then from there, we get airlifted out. And then I end up in Camp Bastion.
Well, that is incredible. You had the forethought right after the explosion to be aware that you may not have the functionality of your legs and be ready to be assisted by your fellow corpsmen. When did you actually realize that the extent of your injuries?
I didn't know the extent of my injuries until I took a chance of, as my corpsman was putting a tourniquet on and giving me morphine, I was just like, let me look down really quickly, because I don't know if what I see will cause me to kind of freak out. But I was like, let me quickly check. And when I looked, the best way I can describe it is if you took a chicken bone and broke it in half, you have these jagged edges, wrapped in camis and blood. And so that's a bit graphic, but that's what I recall. And so I was like, okay, that's all I need to see. And from there, it was just more of just trying to remain calm and stay awake, because I guess internally I was just like, I'm not going to die here. I'll die somewhere else, but I'm not going to die here. And so I kind of just fought to stay awake. And I just remember once I got on the helicopter to be airlifted to higher echelon of care, I remember just holding this flight nurse's hand, squeezing it and massaging it. And she was massaging my hand as well. And I was just like, all right, I'm in your care kind of thing. I didn't say this, but that's how I felt. I was like, all right, I'm exhausted, so I'm in your hands. So, all right, she's going to know what to do. And I was just like, okay, I'm just going to go to sleep now. And then I woke up in Camp Bastion. And at that point, my leg was fully removed, because it was just hanging on by flesh at that point. So it was just fully removed, and the amputation was complete. And surgery was already done. And my left leg was bandaged. So all that amputation was to the right side, and all the other bandages and fasciotomies and other surgeries done on the left leg as well.
And when did you consider that your recovery really started? Was it there in Bastion, or was it on repatriation to the States? When did you start to think about the journey forward and what that meant for you?
I didn't think about the future in the sense, especially at that time. All I thought about was, I'm not there with my guys on the ground. I'm not there with my Marines. And that bothered me. But the reality was I'm missing a limb and there's nothing I can do. So I'm not going to be of any use for them at the moment. And that clicked when I was in Bethesda Hospital in Maryland. So I went from Camp Bastion, Afghanistan, to Landstuhl, Germany, where they just made sure I was stable for the flight over, and then did a bit of more surgeries in Bethesda Hospital. And that's kind of where I just kind of had that view of like, okay, I'm not useful. So now it's time to focus on recovery. But it didn't really click of what that looked like until I got to Balboa Hospital in San Diego. And that's when it clicked, because that's where I had my physical therapy, my, mental health therapy, that's pretty much where I did my recovery.
And just jumping ahead a little bit, but within 12 months post-injury, you were fairly physically fit, competing or taking on some major physical challenges. You were quickly associating sport as your main mode or your main opportunity to recover, to push yourself and to start to get back your physical health. How did that begin, and how did you come across sport at that stage?
Yeah, so how I came across getting into the sports world was that before I got to that point, I recognized that as I'm at Balboa Hospital, I'm abusing medication as I'm going to my appointments. And the way I like to say it is that I put on a mask when I left my room. I'm smiling. No one would know anything was wrong with me, but internally I'm struggling. And every time I went back to my room, I'm depressed. I'm questioning life. I'm questioning God. So I'm abusing pain medication, not to die, but just to kind of feel numb inside. And as I go, as I'm going through all this, I recognize that, okay, this is not me. This is not who I am. And when I was born on drugs. That was the whole reason why I was given to my second cousin. And then that kind of led to, so I was afraid of there would being an addictive personality to drugs, especially these opiates that I'm taking. Even though I'm no longer in physical pain, I'm in emotional pain or mental pain. And I realized, okay, well, I don't want to get addicted to any of this. So I'm just going to go cold turkey and try and get healthy. And when I say healthy, the thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to travel. I wanted to be active. And, whether it be, I didn't know exactly what any of that looked like. It was just going somewhere in a different state, going to another country, exploring, walking around, seeing the world. And all that had led me, once I went cold turkey, I stumbled upon Paralympic camps. And that's how I, stumbled into the sports world and found myself doing track years later, or not that long later.
What were your first steps there starting out?
My first steps was I found myself doing track. When I went to this Paralympic camp, I ran a race on my normal walking leg. And I finished the race, 100 meters, and I was approached not too long after that by one of the head Paralympic committee personnel. And she asked me, she was like, "Hey, do you have one of the running blades?" And I was like, "No." She's like, "If you can get one, you have a lot of potential." And for me, that meant a lot, because I don't think anyone in my life has told me I had potential in something. And it especially since I'm looking for something, it's nice that someone acknowledged, like, "Hey, I can be good at this particular sport." And so I go, I come back, to Balboa Hospital and talk to my physical therapist and talk to my prosthetist, and we get me a running blade. And I, also was lucky to be near a coach who was a gold medalist in the 800 meter, Joaquin Cruz. So he trains me, and I'm doing my first, not my first, but I'm, competing at the nationals in Indianapolis in 2000, and I believe 12. before my first experience or knowing of the Paralympic Games. And so it kind of meant a lot to me, because at that point in time, I was only 2 years out of injury, and I'm already walking and competing at a level that I didn't even know I was even capable of getting to. And so I kind of just wanted to keep pushing things forward. I didn't make the games that year, but I was proud of myself for even being at that level. And I go and find myself not even 6 months later summiting one of the highest mountains in the world in Antarctica, maybe 8 months later, Mt Vinson. And so it just, it went from track into now mountaineering, and I can keep going.
Absolutely phenomenal, your journey on from there, and we'll get into more of it. And of course, share some photographs that you've shared with me online for our listeners, which I think tell an amazing story. Mm-hmm. But I'm just fascinated by the words you've said around immediately post-injury, when you repatriated to the United States and you're going through your recovery and putting on the mask, feeling depression, feeling like you can't move on with life. And then within 12 months, you're training and you're soon to be in trials for the Paralympic Games, and just overcoming challenges, feeling that inspiration, feeling that confidence building. How did that work for you, that vast change in your mentality and your outlook?
I would have to say a lot of that changed. And well, once I finished the nationals event, I kind of knew that, okay, I'm still able to do sports. There's so much more that I want to explore now. And I would have to say that I found myself summiting Mt Vinson would be the highlight and the biggest change that kind of set the tone going forward from then on out. And what I mean by that is that when I was summiting Mt Vinson in 2013, January timeframe, halfway up the mountain, I realized I'm tired. I question if I can complete this journey of getting to the top, to the summit. And I trained for it. I was ready to go, but I didn't really train that much in snow. I'm pulling, a 40-pound sled with, 40 pounds on my back. And there's, we have our team with us, and they're able to assist me when they could. But as I'm getting exhausted, I realized, hey, I'm proud of myself if I turn around now, or if this just isn't the time for me to summit this mountain. But deep down inside of me, it was just like, nah, I can make this, it was just, something was just like, it was, I kind of went through this process of, why am I doing this? And each step I took, it was just like, I'm answering myself, and I'm trying to whittle down the genuine why. Like, why am I doing this? It's like, oh, I want to prove to myself that I can summit this mountain. I want to prove to myself that I can. And then, I'm still getting tired. And it's like, okay, that's not enough reason to really keep you going forward. Cause I'm okay turning around. I'm okay coming back and trying to do this again. And then I find myself thinking, as I was at the hospital, there's guys I'm on the floor with, on that same level with, who were also injured, missing 3 limbs, missing 4 limbs, spinal cord injury. You realize, I recognize that I didn't have, someone who was injured like me doing something like this. And so I wanted to push myself and get to that summit and show them, like, hey, there's life after this. Life doesn't just end because we're missing a limb. There's so much more to life after our recovery from this situation. And so I apologize for one moment. Let me turn my phone off. It's annoying. And so I find what I ended up doing was thinking about the guys that I served with, those who passed away during my deployment, and laughing in my head of just what they would think about this African-American guy, black guy, the coldest place on earth, summiting this mountain. And it was just an hilarious moment in my head as I'm summiting this mountain. And that was why I wanted to do it. I wanted to, if nothing else, I wanted this to be shared with others who went through life-changing events, and for them to know that there's so much more to life after their injury. Because I could not say that without going through this experience, but that's what I wanted to show and showcase once I got back. And it, like I said, it set the tone going forward, where I knew anything in life is possible as long as as long as you believe in yourself and you know why you're doing it. It felt to me like anything is possible. And so after that, I mean, like I said, I can go on and tell you so many other athletic events that I did. But that was the point in time where things changed and what set me to where I am now.
And overcoming that trauma and seeing, excuse me, value and growth beyond trauma is one of the core principles underlying Invictus. So how did you come to joining the Invictus team, qualifying and training, and really connecting that cause?
Yeah, so I competed last year in the Invictus Games in the Netherlands in 2022, even though it's supposed to be 2020. But competed in track, swimming, and weightlifting. And so they're trying to get back to the proper schedule. So 2023 happened to be the next time around, because that would have been 2020 and 2023, and the next will be 2026 every 3 years. So from that point, I kind of just put my name in the hat again. I knew I was able to train for one more year. I wanted to retire and no longer do competitive sports or compete at that level after last year's Invictus Games, because I just want to enjoy life by just being active. But what's one more year is what I told myself. And so I put, my name in a hat, and I was selected again. And again, it kind of went back to, why am I doing this? And for me, it was, I wanted to just end my time as an athlete on a high note. I wanted to just train one more time. I wanted to push my body one more time to that elite level place and just see what I got left. Because mentally, it's exhausting to train like a full-time athlete, and any athlete will tell you it's exhausting mentally because it's a full-time job. But also, it'll be a time in my life where I would also finish my degree, and I will be ending I'll be able to focus on my graduate program. And so training full-time probably wouldn't be an option after that anyway. So it was just like, let me give this one last hurrah and have a good time out there.
Excellent. And you're actually focusing on 3 sports this year.
Yes. The sports that I'm doing this year is track, because that's my focus, rowing, and swimming.
Excellent. Yeah, it must be very time consuming to put time into all 3, along with your study commitments and everything else going on.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy, but I feel prepared enough. Like I would have to say that I feel confident that I'll medal in track because I know my abilities. Rowing, I've never competed in, so we'll see how that all plays out. And swimming, I'll be honest, I'm pretty dense as a person, so I sink like a rock. So I've never been that strong I've never been competitive in swimming, but I have been working on some techniques in the pool. So I'm curious to see where that's going to take me and when I'm competing.
Curious and out there to do your best. I think that's a great approach.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to touch on your studies and your career, where that's gone in the last few years. In particular, our call last week, you discussed really the challenge you overcame in joining in the Marines and getting out of your life in Compton, and then the physical challenge that you've set yourself and tackled comprehensively in your recovery from major injury, and using some of the similar frameworks and similar approaches and mentalities in your study at the moment. Yeah,
so I maybe I might not have mentioned, but when I got injured, my memory was terrible. And so even though I'm pursuing sports, which was just all physical, mentally, there was times where I couldn't even recall what I was doing that same day. And so I knew I was going to get out of the military. So I was actually doing satellite schooling. So while I was recovering in the hospital, I was doing satellite schooling, and realized like, oh my God, I'm terrible at in schooling. But I had to take a step back and tell myself that I'm not terrible. It's just I suffered a traumatic brain injury, and so recalling a lot of the details, a lot of the information that is needed for tests, and getting through these courses, it's a lot harder than what I thought it would be. And over the years, I found myself working and trying different techniques that help me remember and recall what's needed for a test and understand concepts. And, I'm almost done with my bachelor's, so I definitely made something work. But there was definitely a time where I wanted to quit school because I felt I couldn't do this. But there is I don't just quit something. It was just more of, okay, I need to figure something out. I have to find something out there has to work, and again, I was trying different things, and I found something that worked, and I kept using it. And when it didn't work, I just tried to tweak it a little bit, or try applying something new, or thinking about something new. And, whether it be writing down note cards, or studying in advance, not just a few days in advance, but like a week in advance for an exam. The Pomodoro technique, where you're kind of studying for a little bit and taking a break, and studying for a little bit more, a little bit and taking a break, kind of works for me now. So all these little things. And now I'm about to finish my bachelor's in kinesiology. And it's kind of unreal because I think about the process that it took and the journey it took to get here. And I'm like, wow, I'm proud of myself for not giving up, and I'm proud of myself for sticking with it and pushing through. And I'm just genuinely just happy that it's almost over, even though it's not over, because I'll just go into a graduate program right after this.
Yeah, to be honest, Kionte, I find it just incredible, your tenacity and the way you've applied yourself and using these techniques over and over, and whether it's physical recovery, whether it's building up your ability to compete, or whether it's your studies at the moment, just being so methodical and determined. I think it is an inspiration.
Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling. When I look back at my life from the time of injury to even where I am now, it's just like, wow. Wow. That's kind of like all I can say is like, wow. Cause it's just, I'm the one who lived it, but I know the struggle that it took, and the grinding, the depression, the fighting, the anger, the confusion, the questioning. And this is where I am today. And I realized I made it through all that.
And you're not done yet. Next up, after your kinesiology degree, you're heading on to a doctorate of physical therapy.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, definitely not done yet, but I feel confident that if I'm selected for doctorate of physical therapy and I get into the school that I want to get into, I feel confident that I will be in a place that I know I will excel in because of my own personal journey as an amputee, my own experience living with and being around individuals with disabilities. I know that I want to help people. That's why I'm focusing on physical therapy. My backup is a master's in athletic training. So I definitely want to work with people and help people with disabilities of any kind. And so I know once I'm there, it will be much better than doing my undergraduate studies, which is kind of all over the place, where you're learning history, math, and all these different subjects. It's more focused on what you're going to be focusing on, and taking and applying it into the real world.
Absolutely, and I think your journey from injury through to here is going to be an inspiration for your fellow course mates and those going through struggling next to you. So I think you're on a great track.
Thank you.
Kionte, I want to touch briefly on another amazing thing in your life, and that's your service dog, Koja, which you've had with you for some years now, which I'm just looking at photographs now, which is absolutely amazing, beautiful animal. And I just want to hear about how Koja came into your life.
Yeah, so Koja came into my life around 2011. And as I was going through my rehabilitation recovery, I stumbled upon someone who told me I can get a service animal. And I was like, okay, and at the time I was having a hard time going out into the world, like being around large groups of people, being around loud noises. And so I was around a service dog and I was like, oh, I think this would be really cool. And so But I wanted a unique service dog. That was the thing that I wanted. I didn't want a typical lab. I didn't want a golden retriever. I wanted a dog that I felt that would complement me as a person. So a dog that would be active. And so I definitely was kind of on the fence of a German Shepherd, but I decided to go with the Siberian Husky, which is a rare. I've learned over the years that it's rare to see a Siberian Husky service dog. But it was something that I wanted. And I found a service dog trainer who had a Siberian Husky, not as a service animal, but so she understood the breed. And she said, it will be difficult, but it is doable. And that's all I needed. So I went out and I found a breeder because I wanted the dog to not have any health issues as it gets older. And so I went to a breeder, and that's where I found Koja and put him through training. And 2 years later, he was a certified service animal, and he was a really great addition to my life. He's my best friend. We've gone everywhere together. He helped me with my anxiety, my depression. And I will even say, he saved my life, because there's definitely times where depression would get the worst of me. And whenever I got to that dark place, it was just like, I can't leave my best friend all by himself, like I can't do that. And so it just always gave me a reason to push forward, keep fighting. And again, always going back to trying something new. If I'm down and out, it's like, all right, I'm not done yet. I got to try something else. Whatever I was doing isn't working. Let's try this. Let's try something new. And so, and he's always kept me, healthy and active, because I'm always having to walk him. He needs his own mental stimulus. So I always try to keep his brain going. And he's going on 12 years here. And the time that I leave for the Invictus Games, he'll be 12 years old. I'm kind of sad that I'll miss his birthday, because I'll physically won't be here. So I won't be thrilled about that part of it, but I am happy that I've had up to this point 12 years with him in my life. And it's been a wonderful time, wonderful addition to my life. And it's helped me as a person grow and see kind of who I am equally, when I kind of that part, it's kind of hard to put into words. But what I'm trying to say when it comes to me and Coach is that when I like him in my life has always been kind of this self-reflecting position where I'm looking at him and watching him grow. And I look at myself and I think of myself, how I'm growing, and realizing we both have made some strides and improvements in our life, but we're also getting older. But he will leave me, unfortunately, before my time comes. And so, it's just I'm thankful that he's been in my life. And if I ever get another dog, that dog will have some big paws to fill.
Absolutely. What a beautiful animal. What a beautiful dog. And I do have to ask, how does he go in the Southern Californian heat? He must be pretty warm there in the warmer months.
He is. As of right now, it's like 100 and something degrees today. But what I've been doing is I just kind of rinse him off. I turn on the AC and I put a fan in front of him, and he does just fine. I keep him cool. After this conversation here, it'll be nighttime, and I'll take him out for a walk, since I couldn't take him out earlier because of the heat. But he's been doing really well. Like we've never ran into any life-threatening situation with the heat, other than one instances where I took him for a hike and the sun came out earlier than I expected, and it was hotter than I expected it to be, and there was no shade on this hike, so we had to run down the mountain. And I got back and had to put him in like an ice bath and rinse him off with water, because he was hot, I was hot. And it was just an unfortunate timing of the weather that shifted. Even though everything was planned out, it was just a bad timing for all that to happen.
And you were saying just earlier, you're up in Oregon recently on a trek with a range of colleagues there on an important agenda for the disabled athletes. Have you ever taken Koja up to the Northern California or anywhere else and taking them on some sort of winter or snow expeditions, anything like that?
Yeah, I've definitely taken him to the snow. He's been to the Sierras. So he's been to Mount Whitney when he was very young. We tried to summit that, but he was too young and actually was succumbing to altitude sickness or the effects of altitude. So he actually went back down. He was too young to actually make it any higher for his own safety. And then we definitely gone to other mountain like Mount Baldy. Is something that we go to like once a year for the most part. So we can play around in snow and also go up to hike in the summits. What else? I mean, he's been to Canada. We're, he's been all over. He's been East Coast. The only place he hasn't been is anywhere that's, like really international. Like Canada is international, but it's not all that.
He didn't do Antarctica or Kilimanjaro with you? Didn't get over there?
He did not do that. No, I don't even think. I think. Well, one, he's not allowed in Antarctica because no animal is allowed in Antarctica like that. And then Kilimanjaro, I wouldn't even know the process of getting a service dog there. I don't even know if they abide by the same rules of service animals there in Africa, since that's totally different.
So, Kionte, I thought we could touch on Invictus this year in Dusseldorf, a really amazing motto and slogan for this year's games in Germany, and that's home for respect. And I know last time we were talking about, the experience of being over there, the competition itself versus just being over there with other, wounded, injured and sick, but recovered veterans. What's the experience going to be for you this year? What do you think the main focus will be and what are you planning to take away from it?
So for me personally, my personal experience is that I've competed last year and I've done a lot over the years. And when I thought about this upcoming Invictus Games, I asked myself, what do I want to get out of that? And that is what I missed out on the last Invictus Games. And that's talking to different athletes, getting, watching other competitions unfold and watching, just really being a part of the team and getting to know other athletes from all over the world. And why I say this is because last year I was so focused in competition mode. I wanted to compete. I wanted to win. That, I trained all that time. This is what I want. And as I was saying earlier, is that, I'm kind of done after this. So when I think about competition wise, it's just like, what, I want to go out there and I just want to be happy. If I win a medal, I win a medal. If I don't win a medal, I don't win a medal. But the reality to me is like the medal isn't everything. It's the overall experiences that I'm going to take away. And what I remember last year is that I enjoyed being a part of Team US. I enjoyed seeing other athletes come together in competition, giving each other's high fives and hugs and just really uniting because we all have a commonality and is that we all served, for our country. And the other, commonality is that we're all injured from serving. But the biggest piece is that unifies us is that we all love the competition and something that you don't see, and this is more, I could be ignorant. Maybe I just don't see it enough. But what I don't see is that you don't see athletes shaking hands, giving each other hugs, after the competition. You don't really see them genuinely saying, yo, good job. That was an awesome race. Oh, you did really good, win or lose. I loved seeing that last Invictus Games, that it made me proud and excited to be a part of it all. And so that's what I want to take away more so this year, because I want to reduce the focus on competition and more so enjoy the overall experience of being at this year's Invictus Games.
And is that something that sets us apart, Invictus versus Paralympics and other sporting events you've been involved in, just the camaraderie and the support between other nations?
Yeah, so because there's a unifying piece between, the Invictus Games athletes compared to other competitions like the Paralympics and the Olympics. Even though they are competing against other nations equally as the Invictus Games. However, nothing unifies them other than they're all human. Nothing unifies Paralympic athletes other than they all have a disability. What unifies Invictus Game athletes that they serve their country and fought for their country, and they did not only fought, but they got injured, and they have the love for competition. And so when you're out there, you're seeing these people compete, and that you all were injured. You're not like the Paralympics, where some individual born that way. These individuals all lived a normal life up to a certain point, and they were injured. And so that struggle of being normal with all your limbs, now no longer having your limbs, no longer able to do the things you want to do, no longer able to serve or be alongside your brothers and sisters like you once were able to do, and something took you out of the fight. And so there's this camaraderie, not only on the Team US side, but overall, there's this overall camaraderie in that venue at the Invictus Games that I would say may not exist in other areas. So I can't speak upon the Paralympic side. I've never been there to the Paralympic Games or the Olympic Games, but I would feel confident in what I'm saying is that I don't think that piece exists elsewhere. Because if you ever get to see in the Invictus Games, I apologize, you'll see what I'm talking about.
I haven't been yet, but I'm looking forward to getting over in future years and witnessing everything you're saying and just the bonds, I think, between former military members and those who overcome injuries like you have. So, Kionte, I thought we could maybe wrap up by asking a few quick questions about your experience in sports recovery and Invictus and really about what the future holds for you. So, 3 quick questions for you. The first one, you've been involved in 2 Invictus Games now, 2022 in The Hague and now this year in Dusseldorf, kicking off in just a few weeks. What's been your favourite moment so far as part of the Invictus movement?
My favorite part so far in the Invictus movement is simply seeing, well, when it comes to Team US specifically, seeing everyone come together for a common goal, despite winning, which everyone wants to win. Let's not remove that at all. But it's the brotherhood and the sisterhood of reuniting and building and kind of having that camaraderie come together. And I say that not only Team US, but just overall, you see people. I'm sure there will be other athletes that I will see again this year that I met last year. I don't know who will be there, but there's a good chance I might come across a couple of familiar faces. And it's just the camaraderie of just seeing each other once again and reuniting. And to me, that's the part that I enjoy the most. So I hope that I will relive that experience again that I did last year of just enjoying that experience of that camaraderie come together.
So, Kionte, if there's someone listening today, being a current serving member in a military around the world or a veteran who's suffering with a physical or a mental injury, and they're contemplating getting involved in veteran sports, what message would you send to them? What would you say to them?
I would say to them that, if you want to get involved in veteran sports or the Invictus Games, well, obviously first find your sport, but more than anything else, know that you have other people around you who support you, who understands what you're going through. So you're not alone. More than anything else, for a fact, you're not alone, because in these veteran sports, a lot of us have served. We're going through our own struggles. We kind of found sport as our way to not only help us physically, but it also helps us mentally and emotionally. And so don't be afraid of, when you find that group that you bond well with, don't be afraid to talk about what you're going through, because you have people who understand. Civilian side, other people around who in the civilian world may not understand what you're talking about, but in that space, these individuals will understand. So you're not alone. And that's what I would probably share the most, because winning and losing, it comes and goes. But these people that you meet, you come across, you'll keep in touch with them for a long period of your life.
Hey, Kionte, last question for you. Your journey through to here has been absolutely, moving and inspiring to me. I know it's been a tremendous journey for yourself with incredible effort, incredible determination to overcome and to persist. And now you're seeing that successes translate from sport onto your academic studies and your future career. Where do you see yourself being in 10 years from now?
Where I see myself being 10 years from now, I hope that I will be a doctor in physical therapy alongside these athletes, no longer competing, but being their support and keeping them healthy, mobile, and active at the future Invictus Games. So I hope to be alongside them, just now as a support and keeping them active, and no longer as an athlete, but also being their doctor.
Magnificent. Yeah, I love your focus on giving back and assisting people physically through therapy in ways that's been beneficial to you, and it's just so motivational and meaningful, I think, to me. Well, Kionte, I'm really grateful for your time and for coming on and really sharing your vulnerable story about your origin, your time through the Marines, injury, and then your road through to Invictus, which I think is inspiring for anyone listening today. So thank you so much, and all the best in Germany in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
And lastly, is there anywhere people can reach you if they want to reach out, if they want to connect, get your advice or seek some input from you? What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, so I have a social media account. Instagram is the one that I use the most. That's just my first and last name, Kionte Storey, for Instagram. And then I also have, I believe, another point of contact on the Instagram, maybe my email or something like that, which is just my first and last name at ymail.com. If anyone wants to reach out personally and social media is just not their thing.
Excellent, Kionte, and we'll share those in the show descriptions so people can find you just there. So thank you again. Have a tremendous day and all the best.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's Kionte's story and his truly incredible return from injury to be a front runner on Team USA for track medals this year. So our next episode in this series features former Invictus athlete, ambassador, and now special advisor to the conversation by the Invictus Games, Rachel Kerrigan, and her battle to overcome PTSD and stress-induced stroke through her love of horses, adaptive sports, and a truly remarkable mother-daughter relationship. Join me for the next episode with Rachel Kerrigan.